In this video, we will look closer at the role alcohol plays in domestic abuse. What is domestic abuse? Domestic abuse, also called domestic violence or intimate partner violence, is a pattern of behavior or behaviors used by one partner to maintain power and control over another partner. Domestic abuse transcends race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, and age. The abuse can be physical, sexual, emotional, mental, coercion, social, or financial. There does not need to be any physical contact for a partner to be abused or feel threatened. Violent outbursts also do not need to be constant. It can happen once a year or two, or maybe only have happened once, where the victim was traumatized due to the abuse. The abuser then only needs to threaten that they may lose control and remind the victim of the last incident to instill fear in the victim and thus keep control over the victim. The fear of what the abuser may do is often worse than what the abuser actually does. The abuser often threatens the victim that next time it will be worse, which causes additional fear in the victim without the abuser needing to do anything. The role of alcohol in domestic abuse. Abuse is a learned behavior. The abuser has not lost control. With every abuse incident, the abuser chooses to abuse, regardless if alcohol is involved or not. Abusive behaviors are learned from family, people in the community, movies, and other cultural influences as the person grew up. The abuser uses abuse tactics to gain and maintain control, as well as to punish the victim for any perceived mistakes, insults, challenges to power, or disobediences. The abuser has learned and believes that violence is a reasonable and acceptable way to resolve conflict between people, to lessen their feelings of insecurity that you will leave them, or use abuse because it gives them satisfaction to feel in control and see another person fear them. Thus, abuse is a belief system. Alcohol addiction, on the other hand, is a disease. Alcohol itself does not make a person into an abuser. It just allows the abuser inside the person to easier come out. However, if a person does not believe that violence is an acceptable way to handle conflict or does not have a need to keep control over another person, then the person will not abuse no matter how drunk they are. The majority of alcoholics do not abuse, and there are many happy drunks who become extremely friendly and generous while drunk, while many others become depressed and may drop into a pile while crying without abusing anyone. Alcohol is a mind-altering substance that affects a person's judgment and perception of reality, reduces inhibition, increases aggression, affects a person's perception of time, a person's ability to think clearly, and their reasoning abilities. Alcohol also increases a person's perception of their strengths and abilities and lowers their feelings of shame or care of what others will think of them as a person. These combined effects can cause alcohol to compound already existing problems and be a catalyst for abuse. The abuser may perceive non-threatening or non-insulting actions or comments from a victim as threatening or insulting. They may also perceive the victim as taking too long to act or respond and see it as them losing control over the victim or the victim being disrespectful towards them. With their lowered care of what others will think of them, as well as their increased perception of their strength, they may try to re-establish control over the victim through fear and abuse. Thus, alcohol does not turn a person into an abuser, it allows the person to justify to themselves to escalate things to violence, to do or say things they normally hold themselves back from doing or saying. Alcohol amplifies negative beliefs, behaviors, and attitudes that already exist in a person, but it does not turn a non-abuser into an abuser. Alcohol as an excuse for abuse. Alcohol is an easy-to-explain excuse that gives the abuser a reason to vent their anger, still their insecurities, address jealousy, and re-establish control. The abuser never loses control over themselves. When asked afterwards why they did not go further with the abuse, the abuser always had a reason, such as they did not want to go that far this time, did not want to scare the victim so much, would never do that to the victim, and so on. They all knew where to draw the line for them on each abusive incident, thus were very much in control and knew exactly what they were doing. Most abuse also starts after only one or a few drinks, well before the abuser was intoxicated enough to lose control. All abusers also had an explanation to rationalize why they were justified in doing what they did. Thus, they could analyze the situation at the time and decide that the victim deserved to be put in their place, taught respect, or punished for some indiscretion on their part. Interestingly, most abuse often occurs where the abuser feels safe, where they control the environment or the people around them. Another reason why alcohol is not the cause, as the abuser often has the ability to wait until after a party when the couple is home or when the guests left before the abuse starts. If alcohol causes abuse, why doesn't every person who drinks abuse? Why does the abuser not abuse every time they drink and with the same amount of alcohol? And why did they not abuse you when you met them the first time when they may have been drinking? Why do they stop abusing you when the police shows up if they are supposed to not be in control? Why can they suddenly give tons of excuses why it's your fault, such as you are suffering from mental illness or are crazy? Why do they not give the police or the judge the same excuse they give you, that the alcohol made them do it, but deny abusing you to the law? That means they know the excuse is false. When an abuser promises to stop drinking, stopping alcohol consumption may reduce the severity of abuse for a short while, but there will still be abuse in other forms even when the person is sober. An abuser who sobers up is just a sober abuser. Alcohol gave them an excuse to abuse. They will soon find other things to blame, or even you, for their abuse. The abuser may even blame you for causing them to need alcohol to cope. People who shift blame do not want to, nor do they need to change their behaviors. No matter how drunk you are, the core you and your values and beliefs still govern your behaviors. Alcohol can increase feelings of anger and frustration, yet even with these increased feelings, the person will still only act how they believe is appropriate to act. If they do not believe abuse is an appropriate way to solve conflict, they may have walked away without saying a word, or may have started sobbing under the emotional pressure. Abusers are often extremely apologetic the next day, and may even appear shocked that they behaved the way they did. Many, however, will deny their behaviors, downplay the severity of it by saying you are overreacting, or that it was your fault in some way. Or, of course, blame the alcohol for them losing control. Some will claim that only certain alcohol does it to them and may change to a different brand or type of alcohol to appear to be addressing the problem. Things may go good for a while, but soon the old them will come out again. Many will go to or claim to be going to alcohol abuse groups. However, that does not address the learned behavior problem of abuse, which they need separate professional help with. Eventually, they will relapse and drink again and abuse you and then blame you for making them relapse or call it a slip-up. Or they will abuse while sober and claim it is because they are suffering from withdrawal symptoms. Or that they are under stress that they cannot cope with because they cannot drink, and that it is your fault because they stopped drinking for you. They will claim that things are difficult for them and that they are struggling while totally ignoring the damage they are causing to you. They may also use their sober status to control you by threatening to drink if you do not do as they want. They may cause you to be thrown out of your apartment or lose your job because of their behavior, then claim they suffered because they had to go to an addiction group meeting afterwards, while ignoring that you and your children may have had to go hungry or be out on the streets. What many people overlook is that the abuse often slowly evolved. The person may have partied happily and drank with no abuse in the beginning of a relationship, but as the relationship went on, the abuse starts to evolve from invalidation and degrading remarks to cursing and yelling that may go to throwing and breaking stuff, then to punching things or you. The longer things go on, the worse the abuse and often the drinking will become, and the more danger you may face. However, if alcohol was a problem, the violence and abuse would have been there from day one when they often drank, yet had no issues. And as stated before, the abuser often chooses a time and place that is convenient and safe to them to abuse. The fact that violence rarely occurs outside the abuser's comfort zone, and that they have the ability to restrain themselves until they are in a place they feel safe to abuse, shows that they are very much in control and chooses to abuse. Note that promises of getting help or even claims of going to programs can be a kind of control. It can give the victim the false hope of change that can keep the victim longer in an abusive relationship, or for the victim not to report instances of abuse. When the victim finally leaves, there may be no record of abuse and the victim may struggle to get help, and it may make it difficult to get full custody of children. With no record of abuse, and if the victim is financially not able to take care of the children, the abuser may gain custody of the children if the victim decides to leave. Treatment. Dealing with abuse and alcohol addiction is not easy. The person first has to fully accept that they have both an addiction and an abuse problem and not shift any blame. Even shifting partial blame for their behaviors to you or outside influences can cause them not to change. Then each issue needs to be addressed separately by separate professionals. Alcohol addiction is a disease that can be addressed with professional programs and support groups. But abuse is a learned behavior and way of thinking that requires a person to change their beliefs, way of thinking, reasoning, values, morals, and empathy for others. They need to learn to see your side of a story, to understand your feelings and have compassion for you, as well as think about how their actions will impact you. It may require erasing or modifying decades of beliefs and behaviors that cannot be done in a few sessions. It often requires 5 to 10 years of dedicated weekly sessions to make meaningful change. And if a person has to deal with alcohol addiction as well, it can be an unsurmountable task to make any meaningful change. Often there are short-term changes in the behavior of a person, but it soon goes back to normal as a person's beliefs and values did not change and their willpower ran out. Willpower can only take you so far, or the person became comfortable again that you will not leave them anymore. The problem is that many classes are only anger management classes. However, they may not address the root cause of abuse that often is a desperate need for control due to immense insecurity. Abusers often have varying levels of denial and may not be ready to change their behavior. They need to believe themselves to be a good person who is innocent and right in order to preserve their sense of power and image of themselves. Even if they do go to abuse programs, they often shift blame over to the victim, such as claiming that the victim was asking for it. This self-deception shields the abuser from the true horror of what they are doing. Thus, even though they may attend support groups and professionals, they may not be changing at all or accepting responsibility at all. Even if they do change, the change will be slow with lots of failures for them that you will pay the price for. Many battered women say the violence gets worse during substance abuse recovery. When they eventually change to some degree, you may be mentally, emotionally, and physically destroyed, and your children as well. Unless they truly feel guilty for abusing and stop shifting blame, they are not going to change. Even with medication to help with anger, many abusers are too selfish to take it in the first place, and most others are too entitled and selfish to suffer the side effects of medication long term. It also still does not address their belief system and learned behaviors that allows them to feel abuse is an appropriate response to dealing with their emotions. No medication can make a person feel empathy for others, nor instill honesty, compassion, guilt, and remorse. Love does not come in a pill, nor can it be washed away with alcohol. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please like and share it so that more people can benefit from it. If not subscribed, please subscribe now by clicking the seductive red button. As reward for subscribing, you will get more informative videos about narcissistic abuse. Please leave a comment as it helps to expand the information covered in the video, which may be of benefit to others. Also check out my books on narcissism by following the links in the description. Thank you.